Peter der Große, einem seiner engsten Freunde und Vertrauten, gewidmet, Franz Lefort. Er stammte aus Genf, ging aber in die Geschichte als einer der Gründer der Zarenarmee ein. Sein Rat an seine Freunde, aber auch an einfache Kaufleute war denkbar einfach. Man muss mit Russland Geschäfte machen. St. Petersburg, eine der schönsten Städte der Welt, war 200 Jahre lang die Hauptstadt Russlands. Heute dauert die Reise von Moskau nach Petersburg mit dem Sapsan-Schnellzug, dem Wanderfalken, auf der 658 Kilometer langen Strecke nur 3,5 Stunden. Ein deutsch-russisches Leuchtturmprojekt. Der erste Passagier des von Siemens gebauten Zuges war am 19. Dezember 2009 der russische Präsident Wladimir Putin. Unter dem Dach der deutsch-russischen Auslandshandelskammer haben sich 11 deutsche Firmen zur deutschen Initiative zusammengeschlossen, um mit russischen Partnern weitere Hochgeschwindigkeitsstrecken in Russland zu bauen. 3 Jahre vor dieser Reise des russischen Präsidenten von Moskau in seine Heimatstadt Petersburg fand am 27. April 2006 ein bedeutendes Treffen zwischen Wladimir Putin und Bundeskanzlerin Angela Merkel statt. Die 8. Runde der deutsch-russischen Regierungskonsultationen. Damals wurde auf höchster politischer Ebene die Gründung der deutsch-russischen Auslandshandelskammer als Nachfolger des Verbandes der deutschen Wirtschaft beschlossen. Die feierliche Gründungszeremonie fand 1,5 Jahre später, am 14. Dezember 2007 in Moskau statt.
Мне выпала большая честь стоять именно у истоков создания внешнеторговой палаты, которая была правопреемником Союза немецкой экономики. И 14 декабря 2007 года мы вместе с министром экономики Германии Михаэлем Глоссом мы заложили очень неплохой фундамент успешного развития палаты. И, конечно, я с большим удовольствием слежу, с большим интересом слежу. Мы тесно сотрудничаем с ВТП, как Восточный комитет немецкой экономики.
Die deutsch-russische Auslandshandelskammer war, ist und bleibt der wichtigste und größte Begleiter der bilateralen Wirtschaftsbeziehungen. Um die Bedeutung dieser Beziehungen zu verstehen, lohnt der Blick auf ein weiteres Treffen auf höchster Ebene. Vor 20 Jahren besuchte der damalige Bundeskanzler Gerhard Schröder als einer der ersten westlichen Regierungschefs Russlands neuen Präsidenten Wladimir Putin. Und zwar an einem symbolträchtigen Datum, dem 12. Juni, dem russischen Nationalfeiertag. Auch die erste ausländische Unternehmensdelegation, die der neue Präsident zu einem Gespräch empfing, war bezeichnenderweise eine deutsche. Sie wurde von Verbandspräsident Otto Wolff von Amerongen angeführt. Und das ist Orenburg 1980. Der Beginn der ersten Erdgasleitung mit dem Namen Sojus, Vereinigung. Sie wurde dank des ersten legendären Röhren-Erdgasgeschäfts gebaut. Rainer Hartmann ist als Vertreter von Uniper, dem früheren Ruhrgas, seit vielen Jahrzehnten im Energiegeschäft einer der Säulen der deutsch-russischen Wirtschaftspartnerschaft. Hartmann war Mitglied im ersten Vorstand des Verbandes der deutschen Wirtschaft und viele Jahre Präsident der Association of European Business, kurz AEB.
Eine ähnliche Situation haben wir ja heute wieder. Die Amerikaner tun alles Mögliche und Unmögliche, kann man schon sagen, um Nord Stream 2 zu verhindern. Ich will nicht in die Politik jetzt überschwenken, aber Nord Stream 2 ist ein wirtschaftliches Projekt, voll finanziert von freien Unternehmern und dem großen Partner der russischen Seite, die Gazprom, die seit 50 Jahren Gas liefert an Deutschland. Das heißt also, eine Abhängigkeit von Russland, wie wir es jetzt immer hören, von den USA, dass wir uns in diese Abhängigkeit bringen, das haben wir 50 Jahre nicht erlebt und ich bin ziemlich sicher, dass es auch in den nächsten 50 Jahren genauso gut weitergeht mit unserem Partner.
Als einer der Väter des Röhren-Erdgasgeschäfts ist Otto Wolff von Amerongen in die Geschichte eingegangen. Er war der erste Präsident des Verbandes der deutschen Wirtschaft und stand von 1952 bis 2000 dem legendären Ostausschuss der deutschen Wirtschaft vor. Amerongens Verbindungen in die Sowjetunion gingen auf seinen Vater zurück, der in den 20er Jahren so wichtige Geschäfte mit Moskau machte, dass Lenin vom Politbüro der Kommunistischen Partei forderte, mit der Firma Otto Wolff schnell und gegen den Widerstand einiger Parteigenossen einen Vertrag abzuschließen.
Otto von Mirongen действительно легендарные личности для германского бизнеса и для российско-советско-германских экономических отношений. Я думаю, что у него получалось то, что не всегда у политиков получалось, и получалось то, что не получалось у предпринимателей, потому что он сочетал вот эти два качества.
Heute ist eine der wichtigsten von jährlich mehr als 300 Veranstaltungen der Deutsch-Russischen Auslandshandelskammer nach dem legendären Unternehmer benannt, der Otto Wolff von Ammerungen AHK Mittelstandspreis. Natürlich sind praktisch alle DAX-Konzerne wie Volkswagen, Bayer und Heidelberg Zement Mitglied der Kammer. Kleinere und mittelständische Firmen wie Enders, Vika Mera und Rehau sowie Familienunternehmen wie Knauf, Henkel und Globus aber stellen 90% der Mitglieder. Der Otto Wolff von Ammerungen Mittelstandspreis wird alle 2 Jahre in 3 Kategorien vergeben. Das beste deutsche mittelständische Unternehmen in Russland, das beste russische in Deutschland und die innovativste Firma. (2018) gewann die Firma Ekaterina den Mittelstandspreis. Eine einzigartige deutsch-russische Erfolgsgeschichte, geschrieben von Stefan Dürr. Vor 2 Jahrzehnten startete Dürr mit 400 Kühen und 5 Angestellten in der Oblast Woronesch. Inzwischen sind daraus mehr als 180.000 Kühe und Rinder geworden, auf einer Fläche, die mit 570.000 Hektar zweimal größer ist als das deutsche Bundesland Saarland. Der deutsche Bauer hat nicht nur die größte Milchwirtschaft in Russland, dem größten Flächenstaat der Erde, aufgebaut. Er ist inzwischen auch die Nummer 1 in Europa und Nummer 7 weltweit.
Роль торгово-промышленной палаты действительно была очень важна. Именно когда мы начали, как маленькие компании, вообще с нуля начали, нам такая, конечно, помощь очень так была полезна, потому что что-то подсказали, в чем-то там помогли, защита определенная так и была. Именно когда ты маленький, еще в то время была чужая страна, когда ты это начинаешь, конечно, это хорошо иметь такое, скажем так, такая поддержка. Так что очень важно было, и это сейчас и до сих пор очень важно, это обмен опытом с другими коллегами, тем более из других отраслей.
Auch der russische Präsident spricht davon, wie wichtig nachhaltige Landwirtschaft ist. Zur Nachhaltigkeit hat die deutsch-russische Auslandshandelskammer mit russischen Partnern und einer Aufschubfinanzierung des deutschen Umweltministeriums die einzigartige Online-Plattform GermanTech geschaffen. Sie präsentiert modernste deutsche Umwelttechnologien für russische Unternehmen, Städte und Gemeinden, zum Beispiel für die Abfallreform in Russland. Eine weitere Aufgabe, die der russische Präsident der Regierung gegeben hat, ist die Erhöhung der Arbeitsproduktivität. Die deutschen Firmen in Russland sind dafür schon jetzt ein ausgezeichnetes Beispiel und Vorbild und Partner für nicht wenige russische Unternehmen.
Они являются тоже драйвером производительности труда, потому что они показывают пример, как это можно сделать. И часто немецкие предприятия на территории России, они, может быть, даже более современные, чем в Германии, потому что это в основном новые заводы, они используют абсолютно лучшую технологию, потому что российский клиент, он очень требователен. Российские покупатели хотят только лучшее качество.
Beim großen internationalen Wirtschaftsforum 2019 in St. Petersburg unterzeichneten die Wirtschaftsminister beider Länder, Peter Altmaier und Maxim Oreschkin, ein Memorandum zur Effizienzpartnerschaft. Erfahrungen auszutauschen, Unternehmen zu helfen, fällt leichter mit einem Netz, das sich über ganz Russland spannt. Außer der Zentrale in Moskau ist die deutsch-russische Auslandshandelskammer in St. Petersburg mit einer großen Filiale vertreten und in 6 Städten mit Regionalbevollmächtigten in Jekaterinburg, Nischni Nowgorod, Samara, Krasnodar, Nowosibirsk und Wladiwostok. Wladiwostok nimmt in der Arbeit der Kammer einen besonderen Platz ein. Die deutsch-russische Auslandshandelskammer unterstützt die Initiative von Lissabon bis Wladiwostok. Ihr Ziel ist die Schaffung eines gemeinsamen Wirtschaftsraumes zwischen der Europäischen Union (EU) und der Eurasischen Wirtschaftsunion (EAWU). Der Initiative haben sich inzwischen mehr als 100 Firmen aus 8 europäischen Ländern angeschlossen.
В нынешнем мире даже великая держава Россия или Европейский Союз недостаточно сильны, чтобы играть очень значительную роль. Нужно сотрудничество. Это не мы придумали, это наша компания так считает. По нашим опросам, если 2 года тому назад только 35% считали, что ЕАЭС важен, сейчас это число удвоилось.
Innovationen und Digitalisierung sind heute weitere Schwerpunkte der Arbeit der deutsch-russischen Auslandshandelskammer. Die German-Russian Initiative for Digitalization, kurz GRID, vereint bei Digitalisierung und Industrie 4.0 das Beste aus beiden Ländern. Bei GRID sind dabei die 3 Unternehmensverbände RSPP, Ostausschuss und AHK sowie mehr als ein Dutzend bedeutender Technologiekonzerne wie Siemens, SAP und Volkswagen sowie Rostelekom, Kaspersky und Cyfra.
Наши компании неоднократно выезжали в Германию, в разные земли, Баден-Вюртемберг, Баварию, знакомились с работой предприятий, которые уже в индустрии 4.0 функционируют в самых разных отраслях. В равной степени мы тоже считаем, ну, если не удивили, то ввели, так сказать, наших немецких коллег в курс цифровых решений на российских предприятиях. Так что мы, с одной стороны, в рамках этих обмена бизнес-миссиями увидели, что стороны на равных могут разговаривать друг с другом, а самое главное, что они могут быть полезны друг другу в том, чтобы за счет партнерства и кооперации, условно говоря, успешно конкурировать с компаниями из третьих стран.
Auch wir selbst, die Kammer und die Delegation der deutschen Wirtschaft, waren gut vorbereitet, als die Maßnahmen zur Coronavirus-Bekämpfung 2020 die Umstellung der vielen Veranstaltungen auf Online-Formate nötig machte. Wir hatten bereits vor Jahren agiles Management eingeführt, beim weltweiten Innovationswettbewerb unserer Mutterorganisation DIHK eine Goldmedaille gewonnen und für uns, unsere Partner und Mitglieder, zügig eine eigene Online-Veranstaltungsplattform entwickelt. Der russische Deutsche Franz Lefort hat einmal zu seinem russischen Freund, Zar und Reformer Peter dem Großen gesagt, unsere Vergangenheit war großartig. Aber wie wird die Zukunft aussehen? Sie ist viel wichtiger. Diese Frage stellen wir dem gegenwärtigen Chef der Kammer.
Мы идем ногу со временем, мы слушаем те вызовы, которые есть. Мы стараемся быть максимально близко к нашему бизнесу, немецкому бизнесу, российскому бизнесу. Ну, мы в год нашей юбилеи перешагали границы 1000 членов палаты. В этом есть своя символика, потому что Россия и Германия уже 1000 лет соседи. Там были ужасные моменты, 2 ужасные войны. Но все-таки мы соседи. И еще 1000 лет мы будем соседами.
Добрый день.
Good afternoon, dear audience. This is our session dedicated to the strategic development of Russian IT industry. And I'm very happy that you joined us. Please stay with us, though other sessions are quite interesting as well. But trust me, our session will be very interesting. My name is Agnes Farlock, and I'm Managing Director for Center Information of German Economy. This is a commercial institution. Following our good tradition, I'd like to start our session with a Slido questionnaire. Now you'll see the screen, and I would like to ask you, as you have seen in the morning, please connect through slido.com 514 or with a QR code 51451. That's the code. And our question is, and it's very interesting for us to get an answer for you, which country will be setting the trend in IT and innovation in the next decade? Maybe the decisive trends in IT and innovation. Don't hurry. This screen will stay with us. You can take your time, log in, and vote. And I'll take this time to introduce our speakers today. We're very happy that we managed to get very interesting speakers for you. Our first speaker is Dmitry Nikolaevich Peskov. He's the special representative of the President of the Russian Federation for Digital and Technological Development. He's also a director for Young Professionals program in the Agency for Strategic Initiatives. Good afternoon, dear Dmitry. I'm very happy that you have joined us. I'm presenting you Mikhail Dobner. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Omninet, Russia and CIS. He's the member of our chamber. And I'm very happy to say that he's a typical representative of SMEs of German IT industry. Hello. Good afternoon, Ekaterina Solntseva, Chief Digital Officer at the State Corporation of Rosatom. Rosatom is one of the leading company in the peaceful use of nuclear energy. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our next speaker on the list is Agnes Ritter. She's a Chief Technical Officer of Severstal. Severstal is also a member of our association, of our chamber. Severstal is also one of the largest metallurgical companies of the world. Hello. Patrick Pohlit is a partner at RSP International. Patrick is a seasoned consultant and also attorney at law. Hello. He's also a member of our chamber. I'm very happy to see you, dear colleagues. Also, I'd like to welcome, as I wanted to, at least for today, Andrey Filatov is our neighbor. Andrey Filatov is the Chief Executive Officer of SAP CIS in Russia as well. SAP is the member of our chamber and also a member of our initiative. You can see this logo. It's not between us, but it's rather a uniting element between us today. It's a Russian-German initiative for digitalization of the economy. Today, I'd like to note two technical things for our speakers today. Those German speakers, so that everything runs smoothly, please join with the German interpretation. As for Russian speakers, please also connect to the Russian interpretation channel, so everything would run smoothly in 3 languages. Today we have English interpretation and German and Russian interpretation. Before I ask my first question, I'd like to say that we have rather a sprinting program, so please don't take too long. You have 3 or 4 minutes to answer. If you're running out of time, I'll give you a certain sign. I'll try to show it to you somehow. Do we already have the results from our Slido questionnaire? I think that could be an engine for our discussion, so to speak. Yes, we have 26 people from the audience who have already voted. And it's rather sad because I don't even see Germany on the screen, but someone did vote for Germany, right? No? No, okay. Maybe it's not good. Well, at least 15% voted for Russia. I'll remind you of the question. Which country will be setting the trends in the next decade in IT and innovation? USA, we see that they have 35% of votes, and China stands at 46%. For me, this is not a surprising result. But our task today is to surprise you, our dear audience, and to a certain extent to prove that the situation is not as sad as it is being described right now in Slido, in IT and innovation in Russia and in Germany, and especially between our countries. Andrey, I wanted to ask you the first question. You are the CEO of SAP and CIS. How do you evaluate, as of now, the development of IT sector in Russia, especially comparing to other countries? What kind of trends did you see in 2020? And what kind of outlook do you have for the future year? Well, these are very different questions because as for the outlook for this year, the expectations are very positive. It seems that the pandemic is abating. We have vaccines, and we see that the incidence of disease is going down, and we hope that this year will be better compared to the previous one. So we'll be going back to the business as usual. As for the evaluation of the technologies and market in Russia, my observation is the following. Russian companies, as a rule, are not very much behind other major global corporations. They're sometimes even ahead of those corporations in some of the solutions that, for example, our company SAP is bringing to the market. Quite often, we in Russia are ahead of US, Switzerland, or Germany regarding the engagement and introduction of new technologies. On the other hand, what we see is that the general level of digitalization, if we take a look at that, and readiness to use digital solutions is a little lower in Russia than compared to other countries. So on the one hand, we have innovations, and many companies are testing and provide the budgets and create new developments, and they create units responsible for digitalization. Still, the progress in the digitalization is not the way we'd like to see that. First, we had very high expectations, so we didn't have such a great experience. We thought that we'll introduce artificial intelligence and everything will be rainbows and unicorns, it'll be great. But now, when we have come across the first obstacles, it seemed that not everything will be so easy. So the technologies did not give us the results as fast as we would like. So now I see a certain cooler attitude to digitalization, but still technologies are making progress, and we have some companies, for example, Severstal, we have them here today. This is a great example of the company being at the forefront and truly using the most cutting-edge technologies. Yes, thank you so much, Andrey. By the way, using the example of Severstal, I think we would have a chance to talk about that later. I wanted to ask you one more question. I think my last business trip before the corona pandemic brought me to the Silicon Valley. So because our mother company, they have organized the so-called innovation camp together with the colleagues from San Francisco, with our chamber in the Silicon Valley. And they tried to get SAP lips there. We had also Facebook, LinkedIn, and other companies joining, but what was really impressive for me, what I saw there was, well, since I understand that there are certain, these so-called labs, Silicon Valley, one in China and one in Moscow. So these labs are amazing. So this is one good reason, what you have also mentioned. So what I saw there were many interesting projects dedicated to artificial intelligence, especially in retail, smart shelves, for example, counting what's the stock and how to automatize that and so on. Could you give us one or two, some very specific examples of your work in Russia, especially in the sphere of German-Russian cooperation? It'll be very interesting for us. Thank you. Well, you know, since a lot of the things are going on, a lot of is happening, so it's hard to give just one example. But if we talk about innovation, it's been 2 years now that we have a joint project with the Cherkizovo group. They have launched a roboticized plant producing sausage. So it's no people at all, no person involved in production whatsoever, and it was a very interesting project. It was the first in the world. It's unique. Neither US or China had that at this point, especially at this level of implementation. So we're very proud of this project, and we think back to it quite often. If we talked about joint projects with Germany and Russia, one of the departments of digital ministry, we have created a special accelerator, and we have chosen 10 startups from more than 100 companies, and we started helping them to bring their technologies and solutions to a new level. And I think this is a very interesting initiative. We are planning to launch the next phase of this accelerator. And I'd like to say that the demand was very high. We had more than 3,000 bids. We have chosen 100, and then we have chosen 10 out of this 100. So the potential is tremendous. And we understand that we're interested in this partnership because there are so many very interesting developers in Russia, and they're innovative, they have very interesting ideas. And we, as a company, which knows how to work at the corporate market, and we have all the necessary platforms in place, and we can use them for these innovations, and we can use them safely in our major corporate companies, because startups have many obstacles. So I think this partnership has great synergy and it's beneficial to all. These are very different examples, but I think it sets the range and the gamut of possibility of cooperation between us, representatives of German business, and Russia. Yeah, I completely agree. What about this Cherkizova plant? Where is it? It's Moscow region. Okay, Moscow region. Is it so central Russia? It covers about 30% of the market. As for production of smoked sausages and semi-smoked sausages. So with minimum personnel involved, right? So this is a production without people. Yeah, absolutely. And what's most important that the production, the output has become very stable. The main problem with human involvement greatly influences the quality. So it all depended on people. And now, since it has become roboticized, the quality has become so very stable. And it's very important for any producer, the stable quality. Thank you so much, Andrey. So you keep sitting here? I think this is a very cozy sofa, but I will stand up and I'll take you on a journey. We have an operator with a Steadicam, and we're jumping into the studio next door. And now I'll switch into German. And now I'd like to address Mr. Dobner. Mr. Dobner. You have heard from the representative of the SAP company. This is indeed a major company, and it feels great at the Russian market. How do you feel as a representative of a medium-sized enterprise? What's the climate on Russian market? And what does the Omninet company do? Maybe not all of our viewers have heard about it. I'd like to present the Omninet company. We create IT platform, an IT platform which has to do with automatization. It automatizes the processes of services, support, and risk management. Indeed, we have great capacity and great opportunities on Russian market, and we make use of them. In 2007, we have arrived at the Russian market. And since 2010, we have a branch company in the Russian Federation. It's very important for us to be present on this market. And for us, the Russian market is extremely important. We have a major commitment to the Russian market. As for the second part of the question, could you please repeat that? What you asked? Oh yeah, now I can see you as well now. Okay, now the second part of the question. How do you see the situation on the Russian IT market as of now? What's your expectation of 2021? What kind of plans do you have? Maybe hopes, aspirations, and ambitions. Maybe some concerns. Could you please tell me? I would like to look at 2020 first. Indeed, we went through a hard period that had to do with the coronavirus pandemic. Indeed, we had issues with our corporate clients and private companies. However, as you see, we have good outlook at 2021 regarding the growth of the IT market. And I'd like to say that our industry was not as influenced by the pandemic as others maybe. We continued to implement our projects when we worked from home. I'd like to say that we have a unique position on the market. So the pandemic did not prevent us from working very well. As for 2021, we have great expectations. We see specific capacity for growth. And our dimension, which is the risk management at an enterprise, is being perceived in a very different way right now. The companies now understand how important it is to work on the risk management, how important it is to look at their portfolio.
And it is very important to introduce all of these systems. You know, even the central bank has published a corresponding directive, and this directive is to pay more attention to risk management. So they are prioritizing it. So here we see a lot of potential because we are a supplier of this solution. So we talked about economic prospects, but of course economic prospects need political support in IT. With this, I wanted to address Dmitry Peskov. Dmitry, please, could you please tell us a little bit more about the national project, Digital Economy of the Russian Federation? What is the current status of this project? And so what are the major barriers that need to be overcome in order for this project to be fully rolled out? What do you personally think? Do you think that the digital economy of Russia, do you think as a project, does it have a chance to spur on the development of the Russian economy as a whole? Thank you very much. Thank you. And I am so happy to take part in this wonderful event. I would like to thank the German-Russian Chamber of Commerce. We had a lot of projects together. We've been working very successfully. So thank you very much. Now back to your question about the digital economy. You know, in the last couple of years, we lived through 3 stages of increasing attention to the digital economy. First of all, we started paying attention to the digital economy, then it became a national project. And so today we can say that the project is based on the logic of legacy platforms, but before that we were expanding or scaling up our activity. In the last year, the government of the Russian Federation lended unprecedented support to IT developers. IT developers got the best possible support from the governments. We got a lot of tax breaks. And today, we are witnessing a trend for the accelerated development of IT industry. Right now, we are emphasizing or focusing on the development of an IT-centric government. We have created an innovative platform which is centered around the e-governments. we are also working with the National Tax Service. We're digitizing the National Tax Service. We have developed a digital ID. So the digital ID or e-certificate is linked to all of the system of e-documents. Therefore, the governments can talk to the citizens directly, so there is no middleman anymore. We are increasing the share of e-documents, not just between the government and the citizens, but also in the B2G segments. And of course, each one of the projects that I'm talking about creates new opportunities for business. Together with that, we're working on the labeling, on the new labeling system for different goods, so that there is a track and trace system in place, so we can track and trace everything that comes into the country. We also are doing unprecedented measures to increase the availability of human resources, and we increased the number of government-sponsored undergraduate degrees in universities. We increased this number fourfold. We are providing full scholarships, and in the last 3 years, private investment has really increased into the area of digitalization, and we are becoming almost competitors when it comes to the government in the best sense of the word. So a lot of private companies such as Yandex, our company, and so on, we can even compete with the government when it comes to private-public partnership. Therefore, the program is scaling up. The only barrier that I see today almost no barriers today. Everything else can be resolved by the government. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving us such a concise answer. We'll get back to you a bit later. Now I would like to address Ekaterina Solntseva. Ekaterina, some people believe that IT and nuclear energy, I don't know, can these two things go hand in hand, or maybe they shouldn't? So, well, that is something where your company is leading the way in Russia. So how do we bring the nuclear industry and IT transformation together? What does it look like in your corporation? And what kind of digital products or digital technologies are at the center of your attention? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this question. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure for me being here and seeing all of you here. Well, before I answer this question, I would like to comment on what Andrey has just said. When he started talking, I got a feeling that maybe we live in different countries or on different planets. But then I listened to Dmitry, and I got a little bit calm. I don't know where Andrey finds dissatisfaction with digitalization. I see that the volumes are increasing, and they're increasing very fast. And the government of Mikhail Mishustin has really worked hard to accelerate the process. They are really focusing on the digital transformation in Russia as a country. So I wouldn't talk about the slowdown in digitalization. I don't know where we can even find such a slowdown. Well, at least not in our company for sure. When it comes to our company, we really took a long time to try and see what should be the ratio between IT and digitalization. But now we see IT as more of a support function that provides continuity, and of course it is part of digitalization. But nonetheless, and here I would like to thank Mikhail, because he introduces to the terminology run, change, and disrupt. And now everybody is acquainted with this terminology in Russia, which is a very good thing. So IT is run, and digital technologies are disruptive. Of course, digital technologies state-of-the-art technologies will become part of the run technologies or business support. But I wouldn't say exactly the same thing about IT itself. When we're talking about IT is there to support existing business processes, and digital technologies can influence processes in such a way that the processes themselves change because new models appear and the business itself is transformed. Thank you very much. That in your question you mentioned our digital project, and you're absolutely right. Rosatom spent a long time to develop in-house digital solutions. So right now, Rosatom is coming to the markets with proprietary IT and digital solutions. And of course, we see that there is a very interesting effect. We understand that we are doing it very seriously, and IT, digital technologies, new digital technologies, such as AI and even next-level technologies, quantum computations and so on, they're becoming more and more relevant. Therefore, to answer your questions, what is the relationship between the atom and the digital technology? Well, I would say that they go hand in hand, because the nuclear industry is also a business. You can look at the nuclear industry and measure it, just like any business, by how much it utilizes advanced technology. Well, you're absolutely right, and so we can also relate to that. But I'm not really sure whether we have enough time to discuss it in detail. Maybe you can talk to Andrey on the sidelines, or we can maybe organize a virtual meeting for the two of you. Let me just give you some feedback. Maybe I didn't formulate my thoughts correctly. What I wanted to show is a process, is a journey. When new technologies appeared, everybody was truly excited. Then people got a little bit disappointed when the technologies didn't quite live up to the expectations. But right now, we see that there is a lot of demand for these technologies. We get a lot of support from the government. And we are truly involved in this process. So I would like to show Ekaterina that we are on the same planet. Well, maybe I just wasn't clear enough in my answering your question. Thank you very much, Andrey. Thank you, Ekaterina. And now, from one industry leader, let's go to a leader of a different industry. Let's go to Severstal. Agnes, I have a question for you. It might be a little bit similar to the previous one, but what was your digitalization journey in Severstal? How do you develop digitalization at different stages of your production process? And if it's possible, could you please give us maybe a couple of clear-cut examples? Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. It is fascinating for me to listen to the discussion between Andrey and Ekaterina. We had a bit of a debate here even. So let me give you my point of view about digitalization, whether we have more or less digitalization now, whether we feel a bit dissatisfied or not. I cannot really answer your question like this, but I think that now we're discussing it in a more mature way. If you remember that 1 or 2 years ago, we used to be so enthusiastic about digitalization. We thought that it was going to come and change everything. But right now, our dialogue in-house is more mature, what it is that we are going to do. And I think we are not alone here. I read the report by Accenture quite recently, and it was titled, "The time for pilot projects is over." That's what we are going through, from drones to robots, from AI to AEI. So We are just trying to figure out what we are going to do and what is gonna bring in a revenue stream. So you're asking me about our journey. Our journey is that we understand that digitalization will yield results when we do it together. It is first and foremost a business. We were increasing the efficiency of our aggregators. I can give you an example. There is an unit, we have a production unit that went through a lot of depreciation, so we were trying to build new units to modernize it. So we put together a whole team, process engineers and digital readers. So basically what they managed to do, they managed to use AI, and we increased the output by 6.5%. 6.5% might not sound like a lot to you, but if you know anything about our business, then you would know that 20 years later, after continuous improvement, to find reserves like this is truly unprecedented. So combining different approaches, constant improvements plus digitalization yields such unprecedented results. This is just one step on our journey. Another step is that we, just like other industrial companies, started introducing digitalization into the production process in order to cut costs. We understand our assets really well, but what's interesting is that now everybody is pivoting to the customer. So we're saying, we're trying to analyze how digital tools can be transformed into new ways to build on our customer relationships so that we establish new relationship channels. We create login structures so customers can see their orders. We're developing platforms that would allow us to talk to our customers. But here what's important for us is to have a so-called digital heart. So we are developing the SAP platform here, just like Andrey has mentioned. So if you look at the production efficiency, the relationship with the clients, and the infrastructure, all of these together brings us to a mature dialogue about digitalization. Yes, thank you very much, Agnes. I heard that you needed to leave this panel a little bit early. So thank you very much for mentioning your joint project with SAP. Could you please tell us a little bit more about this project and what kind of problems did you manage to solve? What were the bottlenecks for you? And maybe Andrey can also comment on that. Yes, thank you very much. I wouldn't even call what we did together with SAP a project. It was, in fact, a partnership. You see what's written behind me on the screen is achieving more together. I think that is about us and SAP. So we're talking about a number of projects. We're talking about a number of points that bring us together. So one of these projects was a new generation of ERP systems. So we believe that it will increase our flexibility, it will improve our business transparency. We are doing everything to make sure that we have total data integration. We see a lot of opportunities. We can bring together production planning, client relationships, supply chain management within one system. Another example that I can give you, well, it might not be so much of a business project, but it shows how we work together. I remember really well, even in the pre-COVID times, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, that we and SAP went to Germany together. So we had a tour of different digital hubs and startups, and we didn't even talk back then about the SAP product. We talked about developing innovations in the corporate setting. So the system of innovations that we managed to develop in our company is still resting on our discussions that we had over a mug of beer back in Berlin. As you can see, there are a lot of different aspects that are involved in this discussion, and that's how it should be. Cooperation, partnership is it's not just one project, but basically it's providing support in all of the processes. Well, thank you very much, and over to you, Andrey. Let me remind you not to forget about the time, and please be brief. I will try to be brief. Thank you very much, Agnes. It is wonderful to hear such a great feedback. And of course, when we look at our relationship with Severstal, we see it as a partnership, and you told about it really well. I've been monitoring the market, and banks use to be at the vanguard of digitalization and IT innovations. Banks were spearheading all of the large IT projects. And of course, you cannot argue that Sberbank in Russia is the leader of state-of-the-art digital technologies. But if we were to look at an industry as a whole, then I believe that when it comes to innovation and the rate of acceleration of introduction of new technologies, is firmly vested in metallurgy today. So I believe the metallurgical industry is #1. Some people believe it is a conservative market, but I believe that Russian metallurgical companies are among the world leaders here.
I think it's great. And it just shows the way new technologies could indeed give a great impetus how to move forward. And it all becomes even better when you foster these partner-like relations that are not limited to a certain one project, but this is joint work. This is a joint journey. This is a path together. Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrey, and thank you for these wonderful, vivid examples. Now, I'd like to change my questions a little bit and move our conversation towards government and legal framework and regulation. And I'd like to move to Patrick. And what I was interested in, Patrick, could you tell me, last year, the Russian government has made a number of changes to taxation system. For example, IT developers got a tax break, but in many cases that has led to VAT that was supposed to be paid for using foreign software has increased. Could you just give us, in a nutshell, what's the essence of the change in the legal framework, and how did that impact the work of German companies in Russia? Unfortunately, I cannot hear Patrick. What do my colleagues in the studio can say? Do they hear Patrick? Okay, great. Patrick, could you start from the beginning, because we lost your first 10 seconds. The first 10 seconds, I said thank you. Thank you to all of you and to everyone who's staying here. Thank you for organizing this great event. Now, we're running out of time, and so moving on to the essence. So this tax maneuver sounds like something large scale, something that would impact the complete future of the software development industry. That was scheduled as an idea how to counter the pandemic ramifications as well as the brain drain, especially in the IT sector. Now, 3 pillars. The first, income tax, especially for IT companies, was cut down from 20% to 3%. Second, social benefits contribution. The standard rate stands at 30%. Now it was lowered to 4%. And starting with January 2021, we have seen one more cut to social benefits for Russian IT companies. As for VAT, I have to say that Russian software has a complete tax break. It's exempt from taxes, especially for licensing contracts and the right to use and so on. In order to implement all these measures of support, Russian companies have to get on the list of Russian IT developers. That would mean that the majority of their income should come from development and sales of software. They have to make it on the list. So this is the prerequisites. How did that impact German companies and German IT companies? Well, things differ. I have to say that there are German companies that are not present on the Russian market per se. They do not have branches or presence here, and they sell their products from the territory of Germany. So starting with January 2021, since the beginning of this year, there has been an increase in the price of their products because they still have to pay VAT. It wasn't this way before. You could set up your licensing contract to avoid paying higher VAT. That means that these companies will have to create their branches here in Russia. And that's a part of the trend that moving on towards more localization of the businesses, a greater local component. And in order to make it on the list, you have to ensure the transfer of technologies. You have to transfer know-hows. And that was actually one of the goals of this tax maneuver. And several companies are concerned. Naturally, the burden of payments will increase. They increase by these 20%. And naturally, this tax maneuver will have an impact on Russian enterprises. You see, quite often we have difficulties with reimbursements of these VAT taxes. What do we mean by IT services? That is quite often defined in a different way. There is an IT solution, IT product. What is generated by your in-house resources? What is outsourced? In a number of cases, it turns out to be quite difficult in practical terms. What about VAT advances? For example, the regulation is mandatory. So the services which are exempt from VAT, you cannot recalculate that VAT. That creates a number of difficulties for the IT sphere. So this maneuver was not entirely successful. So these are the practical outcomes of that change. Also, taking part in government procurement process. Quite often it was possible to win bids before because they were exempt from VAT. But now, starting with 2021, they have also VAT, and you have to pay that in Russia. So you have to change the wording of the contracts. If you have some major players who are taking part in that bidding process in a tender or major companies, that's an obstacle to taking part in such projects. Okay, thank you so much. That's very important information. Patrick, a follow-up. You started talking about that, but I'll ask again. As for development of regulation in IT and Internet in Russia, what's the trend? Many things remain unclear, and that would require clarification from lawmakers, where it's all going. I would like to break down these trends into three groups. First is the support of Russian IT industry. On the other hand, greater local component and export substitution. And now, also an impact for procurement, supply process for businesses. I guess these are the three main trends. Also, there is a policy of developing clusters, trying to create new special economic zones or clusters with greater taxation regime, with better taxation regime, and naturally, that's all for the development of the IT. One more dimension is the data control. Not only businesses are interested in big data, but big data is also interesting for the government. An important dimension here is the protection of personal data. What happens with people's data when, for example, they're used by the company? You probably know that they have to be saved on using Russian servers based in Russia. And one more thing I'd like to add, that innovation, of course, that's a very important aspect here as well. If we take a look at what's happening in Russia, indeed, there are innovation processes, and there are quite a lot of them. For example, there is a law in Russia dedicated to cryptocurrency, and that is the first law in the world that regulates this matter. That's also an important dimension. Dmitry, how can you comment on that? How can you comment on this conflict of interest in the Russian IT sphere? I mean that on the one hand, the import substitution, that policy, and on the other hand, the wish to improve cooperation with foreign investors. What do you think? Does this run counter to the wish of Russia to improve its digital sovereignty, to the idea of creating better environment for high-tech cooperation with foreign businesses? Thank you for this question. Our model is actually very simple. We, as a country, are moving on to sovereignty in the digital sphere. And that starts with the data sovereignty. That is a very clear-cut, consistent position that will continue to be implemented in the future. That's an imperative. The same goes to the US, China, or Europe. It's the same imperative that has to do with the protection of personal data. I can tell you even more that, for example, in car making industry, German companies that are working on the Russian market, they would have to introduce the same solutions that have to do with the transfer of data storage about the movement of the cars in the territory of the Russian Federation.
That is a must. Of course, if you want to achieve true digital sovereignty. Therefore, I would like to urge the German business not to resist, but to join us on this journey, to play by the same rules, which will help the German companies to still have a very successful business on the Russian markets and to be comfortable on the Russian market. These warranties extends into two directions. Joint enterprises can be created in the Russian Federation, and businesses can also use local data processing systems in Russia. This approach would allow you to take full advantage of all of the benefits offered by the government of the Russian Federation, which is the support to the automotive industry, the investment protection scheme, and there are also other measures that the government is currently considering. We are very interested in having partnerships with the German companies. We're interested in joint development of models for digital economy on the Russian market. Therefore, I would like to urge all of the companies to take a broader point of view and to establish strategical alliances with large Russian companies such as Rosatom, Sberbank, Yandex, Mail.ru, and other Russian companies. These alliances would give confidence to all of us the Russian and the German companies. Our experience shows that even in the most difficult political situations, joint actions yield the best result. Another way we can cooperate is joint development of products and standards for the new technological markets. And here digital technologies are just one component. So we would like to see the broadest Russian-German cooperation in the areas of smart roads or artificial intelligence, hydrogen-based fuel, and cooperation in the area of climate or natural resources, and so on and so forth. But we also need to take into account all of the standards that exist in the EU. So I would like to urge everyone not to use Russia as a warehouse for antiquated technologies, such as the internal combustion engine, especially when we're talking about increasing the share of local content. We believe that if we have very close cooperation, both in Russia and outside of Russia, that is at the foundation of any good and reasonable business. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dmitry. And now I would like to ask Mr. Dobner a question. Mr. Dobner, having listened to our discussion, what do you think? What are the strengths and the weaknesses of the Russian IT market? As a medium-sized company, how do you view the strengths and weaknesses? And how can German IT companies be successful on the Russian market? Well, I would like to continue building on what the previous speaker just mentioned. If we look at the legal situation, especially from the point of view of software developers. Let me say it like this. Software developing and car making are quite different. But when it comes to strengths and weaknesses, I would like to say that the current legal framework is very robust. Therefore, it's a strength. But all of the laws are there to facilitate working with imported IT solutions. So what's important for local developers here is to try and find their niche. But I am not sure that this approach will be helpful to the IT industry in the long run. I do not really think that it will cater to the interests of the customers. I just think it will limit our choice somewhat. We see that American companies are leaving the Russian markets, followed by other industrial IT leaders. So they're all leaving the Russian market. So I think, apart from a lot of positive things, there are also some negative ones. Therefore, we need to keep the dialogue lines open. Any law can be amended, and maybe it should be amended in terms of taxation. International companies need to feel confident as investors in Russia. We've been on the Russian markets for the last 10 years, and we would like to grow, but we want to have security and investment. Here in Russia, we specialize on education, and overall, education is important. When it comes to this, you can find wonderful talent in Russia. If you were to look at the situation in Germany, well, we have a significant shortage of IT specialists, but that's not the situation in Russia. In Russia, there is a lot of talent in IT, and the labor market is great. But if international companies were to leave the Russian market, then local IT talent will follow in their footsteps. And it is quite easy to understand. If you are a good, strong professional, you can always go and work in the United States if you have no opportunities to grow in Russia. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Dobner. We have 8 minutes left and still 2 topics to cover. One topic is human resources in IT, another one is corporate innovations. So let's start with the human resources. I would like to ask Dmitry a question. So you're running a competency center in the national project Digital Economy of Russia. So what do you think is the potential, the human resource potential of the Russian IT industry? And is it true that all Russian developers want to move to the Silicon Valley? Thank you very much. Let me not give you my personal opinion, but let me give you some numbers and facts. Number one, according to the research of Coursera.org, who is the leading online education platform or massive online course platform, you know, they are #1 in the world, and the Russian IT specialists, when it comes to quality, are unmatched in the world. They take the first place. So Coursera analyzed big data. They looked at all of the countries, and we have the most impressive data set. So I think here we will do everything that we can in order to stay #1. But the second thing is that in Russia, we experience a very significant shortage of human resources in IT industry. So I think you were lucky when you found great talent straight away. When it comes to IT, good, strong IT professionals on the market, they do not need to spend a long time to find a job. The average salary for an IT person in Russia is over 200,000 rubles. So whoever comes to the market, they straight away get snatched up. Therefore, I don't think that what you talked about is a big problem. We are trying to reduce the shortage of human resources in IT, and in order to get there, the government is implementing a lot of forward-looking IT training programs which do not exist anywhere else in the world but in Russia. You know that we fully reformed our system of secondary and vocational training. We are introducing the World Skills Platform. And you know that Russia is a 2-time champion in World Skills in Russia. Russia is also the world when it comes to World Championship, Russia is second only to China. That is why we are really happy with the quality of training that Russia can offer. We are the only country in the world that educates students in new industries. We are the only country in the world that trains quantum engineers or CRISPR-Cas genetic editing. So we are concentrating on training students in entirely new industries. We hope that we will remain the leaders here as a country. We will be educating human resources and steering them firstly to startups and secondly to Russian high-tech companies. If we're talking about the Silicon Valley and whether it is attractive to graduates, let me tell you this. According to the latest survey that was done by American companies last month, it was shown that back in 2019, 44% of people who were thinking about starting a business were thinking about Silicon Valley, then today only 20% of people are thinking about the Silicon Valley, and 42% of people are talking about online digital distributed company. And that is the new reality, because remote businesses are picking up. And this is the reality that existed a year ago. But of course, during the COVID-19 pandemic, it got accelerated. So we are going to utilize these new opportunities. Yeah, thank you very much. When we're talking about the quality of human resources, it is a very interesting topic. But unfortunately, we do not have enough time to discuss it here today. I've been working in the IT area in Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. That's what I've been doing as part of my role in the Chamber of Commerce. And here we do know that Russian IT specialists have the highest quality of training, and also people from the Philippines and Vietnam come to Russia and find our place there. I would like to ask you, Ekaterina, we're talking a lot about corporate innovations. We're running out of time, but could you please tell me, how do you cooperate with the Skolkovo Foundation? Please tell us more about your startup accelerator, and what kind of startups are you looking for? Is there a chance for a German startup to end up cooperating with you? Thank you very much for your question. You're absolutely right. We do put a lot of focus on working with startups. We even set up a foundation together with Skolkovo, and this foundation is all about attracting startups to Rosatom. We are trying to minimize all of the corporate involvement for such startups. And of course, we understand that on the one hand, what's important for startups is flexibility. But on the other hand, startups, of course, need to find some distribution markets. They need to find an anchor client for their products. So we believe that we give them a great opportunity. On the one hand, we give them a continuous flexibility. And on the other hand, we give them an access to a lot of platforms where their technologies can be utilized. And you probably know that Rosatom is not just about the nuclear energy. We are a full nuclear cycle company. We're the only company in the world that offers the full cycle nuclear industry, so uranium mining, fuel manufacturing, nuclear power station construction, and so on, commissioning, decommissioning. And we also have some new businesses, but they're not so new. We're talking about nuclear medicine, wind energy, digital businesses. So all of these platforms are open for startups who decide to partner with us, so we can offer a lot of interesting opportunities, and we believe that a partnership with us will yield truly unique products that can become integral to the digital industry. Thank you very much. I would like to thank all of our panelists today. My colleagues are telling me that it's time for us to wrap up our discussion, but let me emphasize 3 more points. First of all, let's look at the results of our survey, which I offered you at the start. And I think we managed to convince some of you, so maybe we'll see higher percentages for Russia and Germany, at least when it comes to cooperation in the area of IT and innovations. The second point, which I wanted to make, is that Andrey is the only panelist who is here with us. So he is lucky, because we're going to move back to the main auditorium to talk to Mr. Cherchesov, who is the coach of the Russian national team. So we do hope to ask him for a couple of autographs, or maybe he will teach us how to score a goal. And another thing that I wanted to mention, that I wanted to ask all of you. We spent 1 hour and 15 minutes without mentioning the word coronavirus. But please, thumbs up or down. Do you think we're gonna see each other in person at the next conference? Are we going to meet face to face? Yay, thumbs up, or nay, thumbs down? Ooh, okay. Well, 5-1 this time, so it gives me a lot of hope. Thank you very much. I hope the discussion was very interesting. Stay tuned, and we'll see you at the soccer booth. Bye-bye.
In Warsaw, exactly, yes. Okay, what matters after all? Is it attack or defense? I think that attack is the best defense. Another thing is that the contestants differ. And sometimes you work with San Marino, sometimes you work with the Spaniards. You can't attack much the Spaniards. You have to defend well to have a chance, like we had at the World Cup. But so let me repeat again, there are teams that can play on their own, in Germany in particular. There is a team like ours, and sometimes we have to adjust depending on our contestants, because to run forward, eager to attack. A boxer should never attack if he doesn't know how to defend. And what do you think, as a footballer, as an expert in football? What would you recommend to the managers, to the management in sports and business? Is the situation similar? Well, it is, I would say, to some extent, because business is a competitive environment. You have opponent, and if you manufacture the same product or if you are in the same business, you have to clearly define your goals. You have to know well the needs of the market in your product. You should know how to market it, what your challenges and goals should be. I guess you need to know how to become interesting for your consumers. I think the situation is competitive, and you should be ahead of the competition. One more question. And this question is, I think, a question many managers or yes, people on managerial positions were eager to ask you. At the World Cup in 2018, Russia was quite successful, but Russia was not one of the favorites. Nobody could ever think that it's ranked top 4 in the world, in the top 4 globally, but you were phenomenal. You almost reached semi-final, I would say. How did you manage, Stanislav?
So how did you motivate your people? Well, it was training. We tested many athletes. We chose a way to pass. We were criticized a lot for our performance. 7 games we couldn't win prior to the World Cup. But there were strong teams such as France, Argentina, Belgium, Brazil. We couldn't afford confronting weak teams. We had to test ourselves, and it was hard, and we were criticized hard, but we did what we had planned. And the World Cup testified to the fact that we had been correct. And we played at home, and we played before our fans. The opening game gave a very good start not only to the Russian team away journey, but to the entire tournament. The whole world watched and witnessed and realized that Russia was a very good and kind country. I understand that training and preparation is essential. Managers realize it only too well. And when everything goes well, it makes it easier. We have a language, we have a word, a trend, and I think everything went well in your case, and everything flew well. But when it wasn't the case, Germany does not impress us a lot, and as it is the case with Russia. How can we find a way out of it? I may sound peculiar, but you know, no matter if you win or lose, no manager can get relaxed or strained. You don't have time to be in sorrow. You have to work in order to correct things. But when things go well, of course, you need to be aware too. You don't have to allow any star illness, and in either case, you need to realize that there are black and white sides in life, and you need to just believe what you're doing. You know that my team was asked a number of questions, both in St. Pete and Moscow, to ask you. So, who is your favorite player in Germany and in the Russian team, and or in the Russian league? I can think on just if I think of just one player, footballer, it wouldn't be fair, since the generation of the players I played with in Germany, Klinsmann, Matthäus, and others, they were world champions, so the entire generation was excellent, great athletes, powerful team. And I would single out the team of 1990 that won the World Cup, and Franz Beckenbauer was their coach. In Russia, I am a goaltender, and Lev Yashin really gave us the legacy. First goaltender who was awarded the golden football. But Lev Yashin, I think, the best player. What national teams do you think are forerunners in the European Cup and the World Cup? Well, World Cup is too far away. As for the European Cup, you know, Belgium is ranked first, and we played with them in the qualification round. We lost both games, and we will have to play with them in the group again. A very strong team, excellent players, great coach, and I think this is the generation to win. As for Russia, France, Germany, Spain, they are also forerunners. And for us, we need to prepare the best team we can. 2 games will be played in St. Pete, and we would like to qualify from the group. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to offer you some surprise. You know the CDF studio of Vladislav. Let's walk that way. Once I wanted to get to the CDF. Now I have the chance in Moscow only. I wanted to become a footballer, but I had to play basketball because I'm quite tall. So 5 balls each. Three balls each. Who starts? Now, your turn. Great professional. A touch of professionalism. It's a draw. 1-1, Russia-Germany, 1-1. So thank you, Stanislav. I'm coming back to the studio. Have a nice trip back home, and the best of everything to you. Dear guests, dear participants, it's my pleasure to declare the strategic conference on the partnership between Germany and Russia closed. It's true that we had a lot of interesting discussions. We shared a lot of interesting ideas, and I think now you are confident that relations between Russia and Germany are based on a number of pillars. We have pillars of cooperation in municipalities, in sports and culture and business. So the mosaic is so strong, and I'm certain that even in the next hard months, we will cope. And I would like to greet you in all the countries where you are, and I would like to greet you and thank you all who stayed with us till the end.